Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. So, a lot of people wonder what the early part of recovery looks like, and that's the section that I'm starting to read in Recovery 2.0 by Tommy Rosen. And the easy answer to that is that recovery early on and throughout recovery looks a little bit different for everybody. Everybody's got to find the right path for them. But you got to remain open to suggestions from other people. And sometimes, especially if you're working a 12-step program and you've got a sponsor, you just got to do what they say and have a little faith that it's going to work out in the end. But a lot of us face some resistance from certain people in our paths. And Tommy Rosen describes such an instance in his book, and I want to take a look at it. He talks about how he had a sponsor who he cares deeply about. He really appreciates this sponsor, credits this sponsor with a lot of his success in recovery. But he recalls a time when the sponsor had something to say about his going to see a therapist. So at the time, Tommy was seeing a therapist in addition to working the 12 steps. And his sponsor and their friends didn't think that was necessary. Here's what he has to say. Mickey and the guys in his 12-step crew knew that I was seeing a therapist, and on several occasions gave me a hard time about it. It wasn't traumatic or intense. They simply poked fun at me when they got the chance. The point is that they truly believed that the 12 steps would solve any problem. My seeing a therapist did not fit into their view on recovery and life. Personally, I needed something more and was fortunate to have my therapist in my corner. And this reminds me of a story when I was in early recovery. I was at an AA meeting sitting next to somebody who, when they took their turn to speak, talked about how they felt so sorry for people who went to residential treatment for addiction. They felt so sorry for those people because they wasted so much money on residential and time on residential treatment when all of the answers and all of the information that they really needed was in the book of AA and in the rooms of AA. And this person did not know that I had literally just gotten out of, 2 weeks before, I had just gotten out of residential treatment. And I was very fortunate that, I had been told prior to leaving residential treatment that a lot of people felt like it was unnecessary, that there were those people in AA meetings that felt like doing things like taking medicine to help with other mental health issues is not appropriate, and that I need to respect their beliefs, but not let that dissuade me from doing what I feel is right for my recovery. And so thinking about this today got me thinking about what are the main things that people need to keep in mind in early recovery. And I wrote down 4 ideas that were important to me, and this is what I would pass on to anybody who's in early recovery, who's a little unsure of what should this look like for me. And so the first, and I would call these principles of early recovery, because these aren't really instructions. This is not me telling you a specific thing to do, but rather how to look at the way recovery fits into your life. So the first principle I would say is figure out how to incorporate recovery into everything you do. That sounds intimidating at first, but it's not. So recovery can be incorporated into, your daily waking routine, for example. Wake up, make the bed. That's recovery. That's, getting up and doing something proactive, productive, first thing out of bed. That's recovery. Or getting out of bed and hitting your knees to pray. Praying, some people I know pray before they even get out of bed. I have trouble with that because I kind of fall back asleep. So everybody's got to find their own way through this. But the point is you can do something first thing when you get out of bed to work recovery in. You can work recovery in to your daily work life. So that's been a huge part of my recovery, is figuring out how to adjust my interactions with people at work in order to bring the compassion, the love, the empathy into what I do there, and to tear down the walls that I've built up against people. I used to spend a lot of time at work feeling defensive and trying to defend what I was doing, and I've started to recognize that anytime I feel that way, that's a sign that I'm letting my pride and ego get too involved, and so I need to back down off of that and be more open to other people's suggestions. That is recovery work. That is recovery work. Of course, things like going to meetings, talking to sponsors, checking in on other friends in recovery, that's also recovery work. But then recovery work comes in other ways too. For example, sitting and listening to a piece of music and being present in the moment and just enjoying it. Sitting and watching a television show or movie and really paying attention to it and not being distracted and getting in the moment. That can be recovery work as well, allowing yourself to experience those kinds of things in a very direct and intentional fashion. That can be recovery work as well. And of course, relaxing without using drugs or alcohol, that in and of itself, learning how to do that, that's recovery work. So figure out how to incorporate recovery into everything you do. The next principle is listen to other people with an open mind if they make suggestions for changes. For example, at one point, I was told that I needed to go to more meetings. I wasn't going to enough meetings. And when I looked at the pattern of my recovery over the first few months of my recovery, I saw that when I was getting frustrated, when I was getting irritable, that coincided with times where I wasn't going to that many meetings. And so I listened to this person. I started going to more meetings, and all of a sudden I started seeing some changes in the way that I interacted with the world. So very important to listen to other people with an open mind if they make suggestions for changes. And then the third principle is make changes that make sense, but keep walking the path that works for you. So if someone were to come to me now and say that I needed to go to a meeting every single day in person, unfortunately, because of other things in life that I have going on, that would be very difficult for me to do without shirking other responsibilities that I have to my family, to my work, and to other things going on in my life. So I have had to find different ways to build recovery into my life that don't involve going to meetings every single day. On the other hand, I have friends who rely on going to in-person meetings every single day as a big part of their recovery, and that's wonderful for them. So we all have to find our own paths, but the important thing is to tie it all back into that first principle, which is incorporate recovery into everything you're doing. So both me and my friends who are going to meetings on a regular basis, we're really focused on getting that recovery on a 24-hour basis, not just when we're in a meeting or when I'm reading something recovery-based. It's really incorporating it into everything. And then the last principle is once you've found something that works, feel free to make suggestions to other people as well. But don't think you know the best for other people. And this is the key, I think. And this is where humility comes in. I have to be humble and know that I know something about my path. There are other people who might have good suggestions to make to me that could make my path easier to walk. I might be able to make suggestions to other people to make their paths easier, but I don't know what the right path is for them. They have to figure that out. And So this is where humility comes in, and I have to speak about my experience rather than trying to prescribe action for other people. And that's a really important part of it to me. And I have been in a lot of situations where, in a sponsor-sponsee relationship, when I am a sponsor for someone else, I have prescribed them actions. And that is a slightly different relationship. There have been situations where I've said, you need to do this if you want things to improve. And sometimes I've had sponsees do the things I've asked them to do and seen things improve, and other times I've seen them not do those things and not improve. And so that's a special situation. But in general, what we want to do is offer suggestion, take it when it makes sense, but really work toward figuring out how recovery works in our own lives. And I truly believe this. If you need a therapist in order to supplement the recovery work you do at 12-step meetings and with a sponsor, get one. If you need to take medication for your mental health issues, then do that. There is no shame in doing that. I do it. So I am the first one to admit that I do it, and I can't imagine weaning off that medication at this point in my life. I don't know why I would. There is no reason for me to think about doing that. If you need to take yoga, if you need to do meditation, if the 12 steps isn't working for you and you need to explore another avenue of recovery, do it. The important thing is, make it a part of your life. Make it so that it's something that permeates your life all day long. And if you're doing that, then you're moving forward on the path. It's when you stop doing that, when you stop living a life in recovery and start living a life based on self-will, that's when things start sliding backwards. So that's it for today. Tommy continues to explore early recovery in the rest of this section of the book. So more to come on early recovery tomorrow. Have a good one.